Okay, so let's get started. I am very excited to have Heather and Aurel here. They have no video tonight, so you'll just have to appreciate their laughter and their fun, and imagine them in their beautiful woodlot. So this is a series that we've started for those that are kind of new here. It gives landowners the chance to share all the wonderful things that they're doing and share their experience and kind of years of experience with us. And then these question and answer sessions give us a chance to ask some things that we're curious about that we might have seen on the video. And in this case, we've focused a lot on Heather and Aurel's reforested area and the plantation that they have. And so they'll talk a little bit about that, and you can ask questions, but they're also doing lots of other things on their property. And so maybe Heather and Aurel, you could just explain some of the wonderful things that you guys love to do there, from the syrup to the animals and all of that. Just a quick little intro, and then we'll just get started very casually. You guys can ask away, and I'll try my best to facilitate. You can ask questions in the chat, or you can just go ahead and ask. So with that, do you guys mind just giving a little introduction, kind of where you're at today, where you're located, and a little bit of what you guys love to do on your property?
Sure. Well, we're in the Oak Ridges Moraine, and we are sort of at the top of the hill near in Bethany. So we it's kind of high and dry soil, and it is a bit gravelly, but we do have someone that comes in and spreads kind of a green manure that he makes from straw that really helps. The reason the reforested property was planted that way in the first place was because it was just a dust bowl. Otherwise, whenever the people originally started plowing that area, they didn't understand that once they took the trees away, that nothing would grow there, and that the dust would just keep blowing and blowing, and they'd never grow anything. So now we're a little bit older and smarter, and we know enough to put a layer of mulch on the soil. We used to use regular cow manure, but now we use something that is made from straw, so that because it's been treated with heat, so that it has no seeds left in it, so you don't get weeds, and you can have more of a pure soil. You don't have to use herbicides and pesticides and things like that. You can just plant. So that's a big help. And this year we've been doing a lot with wild turkeys because the winter has been so bad. I was feeding about 100 pounds a week of cracked corn to the turkeys. I had a couple of spots where I was taking it out to, and it's amazing how easy they are to train. I'd be gone about 5 minutes, and I'd look back, and there'd be a flock of turkeys at the spot. It was just amazing. And if I wasn't there at the same time every day, they would come to the front lawn looking for me and attack my bird feeders and everything on them. But it's amazing to me that they go from being this wild animal that in 3 seconds is gone off the ground and flown away to something that's looking at you saying, okay, what you got? It's in the bale.
That's awesome.
We haven't had an awful lot of deer this year, but I think they're kind of holed up, maybe because of all the snow. So they'll be back soon. I've seen the tracks starting again, and we have a few coyotes. That I actually had some coyotes coming to the corn piles. I'd see the coyote tracks in the snow there. They couldn't find any rabbits, I guess, so they were coming and eating cracked corn. It seemed kind of funny to have everybody at the have vegetarian coyotes. But anyway, whatever keeps everybody healthy. And other than that, we're looking forward to planting this spring, planting some things in our newly trimmed reforested area, and getting some more dog strangling vine killed. And we really got a good handle on it last year, and it's getting better every year. So we have big bare patches now where you used to just have spots where you couldn't even walk through unless you went through with a bush hog first and cut it all down. So it's really good to have someone come in and spray it, and someone that knows what they're doing and can buy the stuff legally and all of those things, and cares what they're doing. They're not spraying good trees, or they know what is rare or whatever, so they don't spray anything near there, that kind of thing.
And you guys also do maple syrup.
Yes, we're in the middle of that right now too. It's started to run really well now, so that's kind of nice too. It's a little bit different color and flavor this year, just a little, but subtle. But I think maybe all the snow, and then the ground is still frozen, but the temperature is warm, so it's maybe creating a bit of a difference. I don't know. It's interesting anyway.
That's really interesting. I didn't hear that. And of course I'm not out there collecting it. So it's really nice to hear all those little finer points. Because we have an intimate group, you don't have to, but I was hoping to just do a little pulse for those that want to just get a sense of what general topics you're interested in. Just so we know where to maybe guide the conversation. And if you already have some questions, you can go ahead and ask, because it helps to understand. Sometimes we have a group and quite a few of them are new, completely new. They've just purchased a woodlot. And so then there's going to be so many questions that you guys can help answer. And then other times there's very specific questions. So in order to facilitate both kind of general as well as specific, it would be nice, because we have a smaller intimate group, to be able to do that. So I will, because Joe is the only one that is unmuted at the moment, and then I'll just work my way back. I see.
Well, okay, I'll ask a question.
Sure.
What is the chemical that you're using for dog strangling vine?
I don't know, actually.
Shame on you.
I believe it's Roundup.
I know.
Roundup. Well,
I
Roundup
believe it is. We don't use it ourselves. We hire an arborist.
Oh, okay, but Roundup would be a very poor choice.
Hey, well, I don't know for sure if that's what he uses, but
hey, Joe, I was there when they were spraying it, and it's glyphosate glyphosate, what's it called? Weather Max.
Okay,
that's what it is.
The thing is that I know people that have used Roundup. The trouble is that kills everything that's green and makes a perfect seed bed for that mountain of dog strangling vine seed that will be on the ground. So you'll be spraying with Roundup like this person's got permanent employment until they croak.
Well, it's good. It's interesting, Joe, because I'll just give a background. So Heather and Orel, Joe is an agrologist. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joe.
Well, not officially, but yes, I was asked why I'm not, but at my age, I'm not really looking for work. I'll stay with that thought. The thing is that any chemical that would be sold by your farm supply people, and you do need a pesticide license to buy it, but anything that they call brush kill, almost every chemical manufacturer has a version. The names all end in prop. And the thing is that it will kill most broad-leafed weeds and grapevines. It also does a good job on Scotch pine. And if you spray it on the a dog strangling vine, at least the grass will survive. And the problem with using Roundup, which is the #1 weed killer that everybody knows, is that it kills the grass too. So you've got a perfect seed bed for starting. But the difficulty with using Roundup is that it's not, dog strangling vines not included on the label, because all of these brush kill chemicals were approved, I don't know, in the 40s and 50s. They're old chemicals, been around as long as 2,4-D. And of course, dog strangling vine wasn't on the horizon any place, so nobody spent the money to do any testing. And technically, you can't get a government employee to recommend it, even though it works fine.
So Joe, this is interesting because it's there is this constant debate, and I see it a lot. And I see the both sides around using chemicals, pesticides, and especially Roundup. And a lot of the times it's just simply that there isn't a better alternative. And so people are doing what they feel is ultimately best. And so I'm curious if do you have any other suggestions that people could look to, or maybe ask their like service provider or arborist company about something else?
Well, I've used, I'll throw in another one just for fun, but I've used brush kill from the very first that I heard of dog strangling vine, must have been, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago. I had a couple of patches, and if you spray just when the little pods are beginning to form, say the latter part of June, it's pretty effective. The other thing that I discovered about dog strangling vine is that one year we had a pretty good frost on the 23rd of May. And I checked on this patch of dog strangling vine that I'd been watching, and yeah, it wasn't too thick. I'd set it back a bit, and I turned my cows into that paddock, and because it had been frozen, they ate the stuff off right to the ground. They had lots of grass to eat, but frozen dog strangling vine seemed to be a delicacy. They practically fought over it.
There you go, Heather and Aurel, you need to get your cows back, apparently.
But you'd have to have a refrigeration unit to tow behind your four-wheeler.
Sounds kind of complicated.
But it's just a curiosity that the cows did a real number on it as soon as it had been frozen.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing, right? Because this is a group of woodland owners that care about their land and would prefer not to use chemicals if they didn't have to, but there doesn't seem to be a better alternative. And so I think it's up to this collective to toss around these ideas. And so I really appreciate these comments, Joe, and you should keep us informed if you
that one's just fun.
Keep us informed.
But if you have a pesticide license, the brush kill is not a particularly expensive material. And as I say, it works, but there's a whole theory out there, crazy people that are in the pesticide business that seem to think that when a farmer got 500-acre piece of corn and, he can only spray the weeds that are listed on the label. So as soon as he finds he's speeding across the field with his 50-foot boom, and sees this weed that's not on the label, he's got to stop spraying. Like somebody's nuts, but that seems to be the way a lot of them think. And consequently, I don't think you can get anybody on the government payroll, Minister of Agriculture or anything. They will back right off from spraying with brush kill for dog strangling vine because it's not mentioned on the label, which,
Well, I think that that there's room to continue this discussion kind of more in detail,
Yep.
specifically around pesticide use and looking for alternatives, and like a whole kind of subgroup, both in forestry and like for community forestry, like forests that are owned by municipalities and that kind of thing, but also
Well,
for us folk.
way back when we still had stewardship councils, we tried to get, I was on the one for Northumberland, and we tried to get a bit of support from conservation authorities and others to make a submission for, off-label permission to use brush kill. And they just fled from that like crazy, because there's no way on God's green earth that the conservation authority wanted to be in a position that the public knew there was something they could spray for dog strangling vine, because they didn't want the job of spraying. So
What is brush kill?
well, it's the common name for, like, you call Roundup. I can't give, diphenylprop was the one that I was using. That's a chemical name, but there's others. As I say, several different companies make a thing called brush kill. It used to be used routinely on railway rights of way. That's what primarily the primary market was, railway rights of way and hydro rights of way. They sprayed like crazy until the public got all excited about whatever we're spraying with has to be bad. And sometimes it is. I only have a pack sack sprayer with one nozzle, so it's I'm not using too many gallons of this stuff.
Does anybody else have questions around this same lens? Perhaps you have a property that you have invasives and you're trying to make this decision. Does anyone else have questions like this?
Well, something else we did is just used a bush hog and just kept cutting it. Like every time it grew, we just cut it. We did that for quite a few years. That seemed to help quite a bit. And we've also dug up the roots and,
Well, I would strongly suggest that you're onto something. Like, for some reason, because chemical control has suddenly, I've been at places where employees of the Ministry of Agriculture, for pasture purposes, somebody asked about weeds, and the lady who's supposed to be our pasture specialist for the province says, there's not much you can spray with, and went right back to her prepared text. The truth is, you're doing this a job that if you can stop the weed from making seeds, you keep that up for a few years and you'll win.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing with the bush hog. And besides, it's not that bad a job in the summertime, driving around with your bush hog can be almost pleasant.
Well, it's getting in some places that's
Well, yeah, oh,
difficult.
no, if it's in among crop, but I know of another weed, Canada fleabane, which my neighbor had a nice field of soybeans, and hokey jeepers, the Canada fleabane just came on there like crazy. And of course, the wind blows from the west over to my hayfield, and the next thing I know, it looks like I planted Canada fleabane. So we needed extra pasture, so we laid out some temporary electric fence, and I moved the cows every day. So give them about 3 days, and then I would go in with my bush hog and cut off the fleabane that the cows hadn't tramped. And I reduced the population of fleabane the next year was significantly less. And that's just, don't let the weed go to seed. It's not a very complicated scientific or, but it's been the system for, hey, I don't know, ever since the first woman started farming.
Yeah.
We need a new topic. Who, you thinned, how old were your trees when you were thinning? Like,
Oh, they were old. We bought here in 1973,
Okay.
and we severed an acre and built our house that we live in now. And that it was freshly planted, like it was within, they were only 2 or 3 years old when we moved
Okay.
here. Because we
Well-
plowed some of them up by mistake. We didn't own the property at that time. It was our neighbors, but there was no fence. So we did plow some of them up and we had to replant them. And they weren't very, so I know they were not very big, but they have never been thinned, because we didn't own it. And the woman that did lived a long way away and never came here. So we just decided that something should be done or had to be done.
That's the story for a lot of those plantations. The guy that
Yeah.
plants them, the people that plant them are frequently at least at retirement age or older. And by the time they need thinning, the owner at best is 85, not too likely to get at it by himself.
Right, not
Um,
really interested in.
But where, did you have a sale for the wood?
The Ontario Woodlot Association helped us out. Eleanor Reed was just marvelous. She was the woman is a genius and a powerhouse. She just goes and goes. She had everything all organized, all the people here. She just looked after it all for us. So the people that she hired or that she had come out, they're from down near Napanee or north. Anyway, they were great. They did a really good job, and we had no problem with them.
But you did get paid, you got paid something for your
Not
thinning.
yet, where they've just finally finished picking them up. So it's not completed
Okay.
yet.
It's my understanding, like, okay, I'm going back a few years, but oh God, I guess it'd be 20 years ago. There's a mill, I'm losing it. There's two mills that, it's an old bird up at, the name of the place will come to me. He used to cut a lot of white pine and run sawmills to make it into lumber. And he was painfully aware of all these plantations that were coming on that desperately needed to be thinned. I mean, in many instances, they planted upwards to 2,000 trees per acre, knowing that there's only resources for maybe 35 or 40 when they got the full. I mean, give me a break. I mean, the thinning thing, and we're still at the stage, they plant 800 per acre, which, but anyway, he built a mill that he sells what passes for a 4x4, but it's only 3 5/8 by 3 5/8. And he was paying, in those days, they paid from $10 to $15 a ton, depending on, if you're larger diameter that, and taller trees. We got about 75 acres thinned down in this part of the world. And I had a bit of fun with that in that in the 40s, you could get free trees if your ag rep would sign that you were a farmer. And my dad came to Northumberland in April, and if you're going to plant trees that spring, you pretty much get into the last day to order them. And it was kind of a chuckle because he depended on his secretary to tell him whether or not these people coming in to see him were farmers. But any rate, he gave him the go, and you come along 40 years later, I was active in organizing the effort to thin these things, and they took out like every third row and paid, as I said, well, $12 to $14 a ton. And then they came back 10 years later and took half of what was left. And as long as they could make a 3.5 or 3 5/8 by 3 5/8, these were sold for like, hold up your stop signs and what have you.
It's interesting that, Joe, you've been at this for a long time, because still it's still really unknown that these plantations need to be thinned for the everyday landowner.
Well,
Right? It's hard. But there's barriers to it. And I think that's also what I learned
but
through Heather and
they're still
Aurel.
planting. There's still no problem getting people. Everybody thinks they're going to save the world by planting trees. And anybody that's in the business of planting them, I've overheard conversations say, oh, well, you have to have 3 acres or something before you could at one point. And of course, people might have had 3-acre lot, but they don't want 100% of it planted to trees. So the guys would stretch the rules a little bit, but they had enough trees for 3 acres, even though there was only maybe 2 acres that people wanted to plant. So we'll just plant more trees per acre, and just exasperates the need to thin. And I could get pretty cranky about tree planting, because it's, if you hired those same people to plant corn, they'd plant 5 bushels of seed per acre, and when it was about 4 inches high, they'd give you a hoe and tell you to thin it, to put it in rows and thin it. And from a farmer's point of view, this is crazy.
No, you're right. It is. And more people need to be aware that their plantations are literally on the verge of collapsing. I've seen some, it looks like Heather, you described it like a desert, right? It looked, it
You
gets
don't know why, but you have to do it.
Pardon
And
me?
if you don't, you slide into psychosis.
Who's this?
Larissa.
It stops working.
Larissa, I can hear you. Do you want to say
Oh.
something?
Sorry.
I can see her there for a bit.
I can see you. Would you like to ask a question?
No, sorry. No, that's all right.
No problem.
Poor
So
Erica can only get a couple of people to talk.
well, no, it's an important point, because it's quite difficult for people to find good harvesters to thin their plantation, and often there's not quite enough
Well,
to entice the harvesters.
That was our problem.
Yeah, so
well, that's how we got but we also had a local forester or harvester guy that we had faith in, and the stewardship council didn't have any trouble introducing Bob True to these people, because we knew he was a reputable guy that wasn't going to make a mess. But there's barely a market for the stuff, is the trouble. I know another chap that did the thinning himself, and he was quite proud of himself. He got a person who heated their house with an outdoor furnace to take it away. Yeah, I don't know, but he thought this was great, because he said, why did he want, cut these things down and have it all just lay there, and afraid somebody threw a match in it when it was all dry.
Oh, well, whatever makes you happy, I guess.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, well, that's the problem, is to get the main thinning, the first thinning done. And then
Yeah.
after that, hopefully the next harvest
Yeah.
will have
When
a
they're
bit of,
bigger. Yeah,
maybe an economic benefit.
yeah, because they're still
But
doing the
no.
same thing now.
Not everybody can see their way through to pay to have it thin the way it should be. Fortunately enough, me and Heather could do that, but a lot of these people can't do that. And if they
Well-
could, then we could be more of an independent country with our own lumber.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
for-
important.
For years to come. Like, I understand we are, but we should continue that.
Yeah, to keep planting.
well, the other thing is, though, I hope, I hope your plantation isn't Scotch pine.
No,
No.
no, but
Well,
we do
okay,
have
but I
one.
mean, if you don't harvest them as Christmas trees, I really despair. I mean, it's so crooked and so gummy. I don't think anybody even wants them for wood chips.
Yeah, no, we don't have any of that.
And there are places, I mean, this is I mean, okay, there's a questionnaire out of University of Waterloo that some of you must have seen in the Farm Magazine. Anyway, they're asking why farmers don't plant more windbreaks and look after their woodlots and concern themselves with establishing riparian zones. And I mean, let's face it, you want to be careful. Ministry of Natural Resources or whatever in Ontario planted thousands and thousands of acres of about the worst invasive species we have, and that's Scotch pine.
Yeah.
It originated from the Black Forest in Germany, but it was not too marketable following the Second World War to call it German pine. So, and I have seen some in Scotland that seem to grow straighter and make better. And I did drive past a mill in Scotland that was clearly working entirely on what we call Scotch pine, but it was better stuff than most of what I've seen in this country. And there's 50 and 100 acre blocks of Scotch pine. The only thing that the poor owner can hope for is a forest fire.
Larissa says that she has some Scotch pine that was planted in the late 1970s.
Ooh,
Yeah. I
Christmas
have
tree.
a question
Christmas tree.
because
Please.
basically, well, I have a 45-acre plantation that was planted by my parents in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
And basically, like, my impression is that it would cost me something like $4,000 or $5,000 to get it thinned. And I have to pay them and I get
Yep.
nothing out of it. And that
Yep.
was that was my, and I have mainly it's pine and spruce.
The spruce, different story, but the Scotch pine, the Scotch pine, if you're extremely fortunate, some of the early seed that came into Ontario apparently grew straight enough trees that they are useful for utility poles. If
Right.
you don't want to
They're
get
not-
too tall.
They're
But-
not crooked trees.
Oh, then that's
They
They're
They're
grow
not
straight.
crooked.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, there's no, it doesn't look like a Dr. Seuss forest or something. But I mean, my
Most of
point
them
is,
are. Yeah.
yeah, my point is like, how is there, number one, like, who could I already talked to 2 or 3 people and they basically wanted me to pay them, to thin it. And
What diameter are we? What diameter are they? Would they
Like
make
just-
a?
oh, they're not very well. They were planted in 79 and 84, I think, and they're just like, they're probably somewhere like that.
What? You're
Foot
looking at,
across.
you're holding your hands at 8-10 inches.
Well, something like a foot across, yeah.
Oh, my word.
Well, I don't know, but they're supposed to be thinned now, and I've already,
They should have been thinned when they were like 4 or 5 inches.
But the thing
Ah.
is there, if you
I-
look up, do you still see, like, it's called a live crown ratio. You can kind of determine, their health by that a little bit. Is when you look up, do you still see that there is some green at the top?
yeah, I mean, there is, the recommendation of the original managed forest, like the forester went through it, said that they should be thinned around now.
Okay.
So Heather,
don't-
in our
Well,
realm,
it sounds-
Like maybe
Where-
5 years ago or something,
where are
but
you
not,
located?
But the diameter you're looking at is
well, it
big enough to
varies.
attract
Some of them are a little
for saw
thinner.
logs. But it's lumber that you pretty near have to use it yourself. I don't think, I think, compared to what you'd pay at a lumber yard for spruce, pine, you know, fir stuff, I can't imagine anybody would want to pay you half that for Scotch pine because it is so gummy.
Yeah, but you were saying that it's mostly pine and spruce, right?
That's right. I mean, I think I've even got the plan here somewhere. Maybe it's in the other room, but the point is, I actually wondered if I could get I know a guy with a portable sawmill, and I wondered if I could use it for lumber, but then I was told, well, no, you can't, because the lumber has to all be stamped and so on and so on.
Graded, yeah, yeah. Well, that's precisely why, you know, this questionnaire out of Waterloo is asking why farmers don't look after their, you know, concern themselves with their woodlots. The primary reason is they can't use the lumber. If you know, you can sell firewood without, although there's restrictions on that if you've got any emerald ash borer.
So Larissa, where are you located?
Right near Alexandria, Ontario. So
Alexandria, okay.
So
there's Eganville. There's a mill at Eganville that would take thinnings, but they prefer red pine
okay.
because they'll grow straighter and it makes better lumber.
Okay.
And the name of the other outfit isn't coming to me, but it's a lot farther away from you.
Is there a contact at the mill?
No,
at
I
Egan-
can't.
I think Heidemann is there.
Heidemann, yeah, Heidemann.
Yeah, Heidemann's, that's who did us.
Okay, Heidemann. Well, Heidemann's, they're a long ways from home. There's another mill that's a lot closer, up in, but not coming
yeah,
to me. And it's like it was 25 years ago that we were doing this thinning, but Heidemann has been at this a long time. And
Okay.
And
but-
they didn't charge us. They weren't charging us anything to do it. So that's
Oh, really?
possibly partly because there's someone else on the same road that had a plantation that could add to the quantity.
Ah,
So
Right.
that may be
That's
part of the reason.
well,
That's the
it-
benefit of the co-op, right? Is so we're grouping
Yes.
Yep.
we're grouping all these properties together, and then there's one forester that has been vetted by many people in the organization, and they go in and they help you and they work with the logging companies and help make it all smooth, which is what Heather and Orel did. So that's why I
Okay.
asked, where are you? Because we could, you know, get in with these 2 pilot projects, but
Okay.
you might be a little bit too, east, but that's not to say that there couldn't be a new pilot started in your area, or just simply that we couldn't connect you with some neighbors, and maybe give you some of that background info to be able to just reach out to your own neighbors yourself and just say, look, this is
Right.
what I've got. Do you have a similar thing?
there are other plantations around here. I know that for sure. There's the Howard S. Mitchell tract, which is like a huge plantation. And then there are
We
smaller
needed
ones.
about 75 acres to interest the guys years ago. So I just throw that
Okay.
at you that, you know, and I think
So
we
who-
had,
Whom do I contact? That's my question.
well,
is-
Heidemann, it's a,
If I were
lumber.
you, I would just write to us at the OWA. So
Okay.
just info at
Yeah,
ontariowoodlot.com. And then tomorrow, so John, our executive director, is on this call, kind of just listening in. But we can, in our network, we know all these foresters across Ontario. And so we could reach out, and if we know someone in your area, which we probably do, and we can say, hey, look, you know, Larissa has this concern. Can you connect with her? And it's really that's where the forester comes in. That's their role. They're that hand holder trying to help you make the best choices with your forest, connect with the best logging company so that you're happy, because not everyone's the same. Not all, like as Heather said in her video, right? It's like cutting your own hair. You don't want to do that.
Right.
So they do this day in and day out. And so
Well, I'm supposed to have my what's it called? The MFTIP
Yep.
program reappraised this, or, you know, renewed this spring. So I could, I suppose, talk to the forester who's coming in a month, so about all of this, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's, as I say, I had one forester and one sort of logger look at it, and they were, I don't know, like they were basically saying that the trees are straight enough, but they are not big enough to warrant, well, they would want to take all the best ones.
Which is, you don't want to work with that company.
Yeah, right. And
Run
they,
away, run
yeah,
away.
they don't want, they want to cut down all the nicest trees and then leave like the bad little spindly ones, you know. So yeah, it was very strange actually, because I just got the feeling like that this was not working. So yeah.
Heather and Arel, maybe you could chime in and just talk about maybe some of your fears that you had before, and how you were able to.
Sure, I went through the same thing. We had different people come here and say what they would do or what they wouldn't do. And then I tried to find a place that each one of those people had done, so that I could have a look at their work and see how they had left things for other people. And I just found a lot of big old messes. So, and I didn't want that myself, and it was very frustrating. So I can't, it was Kawartha Land Trust that I got a hold of at first, a Thomas Unrau there. And he got me started on the right path. He knew the people that would mark it for me. And then the people that marked it knew somebody that would cut it for me. And it went snowballed on. And next thing I know, I've got, you know, they're all here and they've got it all organized. And Eleanor Reed, she did all that for me. I guess she would be the log person, or the, you know, the woodlot person, like you said. She organized it all, and she hired the trucking company, and they went, they were 4x4 posts or 3 3/4 posts as well, and they went to Penetang in the end to be made into pressure treated.
Anything.
Yeah,
Okay.
they went to Penetang to be pressure
Okay.
treated and shipped. Yeah. Where they were
Very
taking-
wise move there. Over the years, I've had a number of situations where people have wanted to cut, well, it was red oak mostly at my place. And I insisted on asking them where they were working and why they were so far from home. And they gave me very evasive answers. And I said, don't bother coming to look at my trees.
Yep.
If you're ashamed of the bush you're working in, I don't want you. And
Yeah.
but that same individual, his surname was Castor. I thought it was nifty that he was cutting down trees. He's a beaver. But he cut a lot of bushes in our county and basically was responsible for us enacting a tree cutting bylaw, because some local guys that knew the county councilors said, this is just terrible, you know, but they'd quite happily drive over an 8-inch tree if it was in the way to, you know.
Oh dear.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
if, and I'm sorry, I Castor didn't take my telephone invitation to stay away. He came and knocked on my door, and I told him I wouldn't even let him look in my woods, because I'd walked through a couple of bushes that he'd cut. And
Bianca,
he-
did you, sorry,
Yeah.
Joe, I saw Bianca's hand up. I just want to,
okay, I don't see anybody but Larissa, but go ahead.
Bianca, did you still have a question? I just want to.
I did. I'm new to this. We just bought a 100-acre property that is about 45% to, I'm going to say 80% of plantation and overgrown trees.
Yeah.
And we dealt with amazing forester that helped us from the neighbor, had given us a name and number, and we got in contact. The forester was amazing. She brought in a logger who absolutely destroyed the property.
Oh, crap.
I was left with a lot of ruts in the ground, a lot of trees where he cherry picked what he wasn't supposed to take and what he did take. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to hear the comments about what the landowners had gone through and what they experienced, because as a new homeowner, I'm all new to this. I know nothing about plantations. I know nothing about forestry. So I was hoping that I get a little bit of information as to what direction, because now that it's been thinned, because they were never thinned ever, and they weren't planted properly or anything on our particular lot. But now they say, okay, in another 10 years, we should start thinning again. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to hear some of the good stories of people who had loggers come in and do a lot of the stuff and to help rebuild the forest. Because a lot of it's just been left overgrown, and now I've got ruts everywhere because they did it in the middle of summer, which I didn't realize until recently. It should only be done in the winter time. So a lot of the stuff was new. We really knew nothing about it. So I just wanted to kind of hear comments of what other people had. And the lady previously said the same thing. Her forest has been there since the 70s and the 80s. And she's looking to find somebody to help her develop her land or do something with the trees. And I think that's where a lot of newcomers to the Woodlot Association are looking at, is we haven't been here before. So what do we do and where our resources are?
Heather, do you want to share your positive experience and what it should feel like? And then, and
Sure.
yeah.
I didn't have to, once I found Eleanor Reed, I really didn't have to do a lot. She is so knowledgeable, and she knew all the steps to follow, and she knew all the people to contact. She just made it so easy. And she was here with her drone taking pictures. So even if you didn't want to go out there, you could see exactly what they were doing, which I really appreciated. She wasn't embarrassed or ashamed of anything that they were doing. She wanted you to see it. And that was great. And they explained to me, I thought things should be thinned. I was thinking every other row. And they said, oh no, you do take 4, no, take 2, leave 4. And you get a better cut, and you get a better regrowth area. So you've got a nice wide area for the new trees to come up. And they also explained to me how you leave a little, you take the tree itself, but you leave a little bit of the branches just to help the new tree, because of the soil was so sandy to begin with, and it's kind of fragile. You need to leave those branches and the needles there for the new tree to get nutrients and water and wind protection while it's growing. And then in about 3 or 4 years, that detritus is rotted away. It's providing nutrients for the new tree that's growing, and it's kept it for the 3 years, so it's got a good solid root base and can get growing. So all of that, I didn't know any of those things until I met the people from the Woodlot Association that did all this. And it was really, really helpful to see all the different people that become involved and all of the stages, because we got it thinned out. We got a bit more dog strangling vine that year. So then the arborist knew everybody. So he came and sprayed the dog strangling vine, and now it's gone. And we've really had a lot of luck with all these things. It's really become a totally different property. It's something that's more usable. Before, I couldn't even walk through it with my dog. I have a Chihuahua, and she could not make it through the dog strangling vine. So we had to just leave that. Unless you got out there with the bush hog and cut it all down, you just couldn't use that entire area. So it's really been nice to have. Now we have our whole land back. We've got 200 acres instead of 150.
And
Great.
what about damage, like other
We didn't have
damage?
any damage. We didn't have any damage.
You had yours done in the winter time though, right?
They did it late. Yeah, late. They started about around November, the end of November. Yeah, and they worked till, well, they just trucked the last away not too long ago. That's the only problem with having it done in the winter, is it's hard to have access when you have as much snow as we had this year. We had to do a lot of snow removal, but that was the only drawback, nothing else.
Okay.
And there was no damage. It's big, heavy machinery, but we didn't have any damage to the soil or any areas. We actually got a nice layer of pine bark mulch from where they piled the logs, so that was great.
Yeah,
On our
because
gravelly soil.
what they're supposed to do is they thin, and then basically the machine, depending on the machine will take the very top off, and then they'll stack the remaining log to be picked up and taken out. But that top part, they are supposed to lay those all down, and then they actually drive over it and break it down so that, well, firstly, it looks neater because now you don't have all these branches sticking
Right.
up. And secondly, it makes a path, and it can biodegrade faster because it's been kind of run over. And
makes
it also helps reduce with the compaction as well. There's all these, so when you work with a good company, that's where you get those benefits. And it really is up to, like you said, Bianca, you can have a great forester, but then the logging company can do something that you don't want. And so there's all these different steps involved, and it can be very kind of nerve-wracking, right? And so that's why we're here. That's why the OWA exists, is to help people with these worries and fears and help you to find the right person in your neighborhood that can do what you're wanting. So where are you located, Bianca?
In the Kawarthas.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. So you could probably join the cooperative with Heather.
Mhm.
Is there something online or something like that? Like, how does it work, the cooperative? Like I said, I'm new to all this, so I have no idea what my resources are or what my avenues are to go for different things. Like I said, my fields now are like 4-foot ruts because of the machinery they did in the summer. I have wetlands, so like it's really unusable for anything right now.
Okay, well, contact me. I'll put my contact just up here now, and give me a message, and
Okay.
I'll make sure that I put you in contact with the local person who's going to be running this. And we'll see if we can get you included in the co-op here. That's the
that'd be great.
benefit, is it's already started here in your region, so you're lucked out. But we hope to expand this across Ontario. And to Aurel's point, it's not only needed for the landowners, but it's desperately needed for local sawmills. And that's what makes Ontario so wonderful compared to other places where, like New Brunswick, where most of the sawmills are owned by big players. We still have quite a few smaller sawmills that depend on wood from your forests. And so with these cooperatives, now we're creating a voice, right? Like a woodland voice, where in other countries like Finland, the woodland owners have so much power. They can determine the price of wood because they act as one kind of united force. And so that's where we're trying to go with this, is to give more power into the hands of woodlot owners. And so some kind of structure with this co-op is going to help to do that. That's the intention anyway. So I'll put my my contact here, and yeah, Larissa, you can message me directly too. I gave you the general one.
Okay.
So erica.dixon@ontariowoodlot.com, and I'm actually in the Kawarthas as well. So I'm
Okay.
Because I'm basically in the Ottawa Valley, south of Ottawa, essentially.
What?
Okay,
Horses.
where are you again, Joe?
No, well, between the Ottawa Valley and the Kawarthas is a fair bit of distance.
I know.
No. Bianca's in the Kawarthas.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. And because you're in the Kawarthas, there's a potential for you to go and see perhaps Heather and Arel's, and so you can see what it
Supposed to
should
look
in-
like?
Yeah, right? Right?
And we have really soft soil. So if, if they were going to do damage anywhere, they would have done it here, that's for sure. But there is none. So.
Well, I mean, I've seen a successfully thinned woodlot up towards St. Isidore. So up towards Ottawa, a little bit, about a 45-minute drive from here, something like that. And it looks great. I was just like, so I mean, what you're suggesting is that if I assume that other people in this immediate area in Glengarry, Prescott, Russell are also members of the Woodlot Association. So if we could all form a cooperative down here, then we could do the thinning as a group, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds really good.
And there's
Yeah.
and there's you guys are fairly close to the Algonquin College.
Yeah.
And the students with the OWA have gone out to the LaRose Forest, and there's they've done inventory there. So there's connection with the local schools. On top of that, that's definitely going to be one of the areas where there's most LiDAR data, which is basically light. It's you go around and you take basically a picture of your forest using light. And the OWA right now is helping to create this picture of all the private land in Ontario, because it exists for the Crown Forest, but not for the private forest. And so that makes it difficult to get an understanding of how much wood is out there, to advocate for private wood, and to get investment into things that would be beneficial to private woodlot owners. For example, like bioenergy. In Finland, if you have thinned wood, that goes to bioenergy. So you get money for that. Whereas here, there's very little market still for that thinned wood. And so you get practically nothing, like you said, and you feel like you have to pay for something you should be getting money for. So the more that we get this data around what exists, the more investors will say, oh, okay, I'll invest in that because I see there's a market. So that's kind of the bigger picture strategy that we're trying to accomplish, to advocate for the private woodlot owner, to develop this kind of economy and autonomy for you guys. So, well, does anybody else have questions? It's 8 o'clock now, and I don't want to take too much more of Heather and Arel's time. Just give a second. Okay, well, if you have any questions, please contact me. So I put my information there. This is recorded, and you'll get that recording. And feel free, if you have friends, family that are in the same situation, feel free to send this to them as well. And tell them they're not alone, right? And I think it's kind of nerve-wracking if you have a woodlot, you have a plantation, and you want to do your best and you want to take care of it, but you don't want to be taken advantage of. So it's really nice to have Heather and Arel here to share a positive story amongst all the fear, because there's a lot of fear, and rightly so. So Heather and Arel, do you want to have any last words?
Not really. I just I appreciate everything the Woodlot Association did, and all the people involved, and it just made things very easy for us. So we, well, we did hear of other nightmare things happening around us. It, luckily for us, it didn't happen. So anyway, there are good people out there. Just got to find them.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful night. Thank you for all the comments and the input. Everything is really appreciated. Again, it's so lovely to have this chance to talk to everyone once a month. And I hope to see you guys next month. We're going to have Dina Sinaway. I'm going to be sharing his video in a couple of days from Green Legacy Farms up near Mattawa, and he'll be here in a month to answer your questions. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. Thanks for joining, and hopefully we'll see you in a month. Thank you, Heather and Narelle. You guys
Thank
are
you.
awesome. Have a
good
wonderful
night.
night, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.